Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is just giving you a basic overview of the pork carcass. If we take our pork carcass here, what you can see is that in the harvest process we remove all of the hair from the pork carcass and clean them up so that the outer skin, which remains on the carcass, is a perfectly clean, edible product. And then if we turn the carcass around, you can see that we remove all of the internal organs. And then one of the last things that we do on the harvest floor is to split the carcass right down the middle so that we make a right side and a left side. This is the right side. You can see that the carcass is hanging by the right hind limb. And then down here we have the right forelimb. This is obviously the outer skin surface, and then this would be the split side here. Okay. What I've done is just marked for you the basic cuts that we would make to break the carcass into its primary wholesale pieces. From here up would be the ham. This portion would be the loin. This would be the belly, where we get the bacon from. And then the shoulder is further divided. The upper portion of the shoulder is called the Boston butt, and the lower portion of the shoulder is called the picnic, or the picnic shoulder. Okay, if we come over here to the table, what we've done is we've taken another right side of pork and made the basic breaks so that we can show those to you and then also show you what their principal use might be. There are many uses for most of these primals, but I'm going to just try to give you a basic understanding of what we would most commonly do with them. Starting with the ham, we just break the ham from the loin. A very minimal amount of trimming. We leave most of the skin on, all of the bones in it, and then we could cure the ham with salt, sugar, curing salt, and then smoke it and sell it just like it is with the bone in and the skin on. You might buy one of those for your whole family at Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter. It's quite a good size piece of meat to buy, 17, 18, 20 pounds or so if you buy the whole thing. But most people don't eat that but once or twice a year. So commonly what we'll do is remove the skin, take the bones out, and separate the ham into its primary muscles, the large muscle groups, which we would cure the same way, but then they could be sliced and sold in much smaller portions for sandwich making and that type of thing. The types of things that we would eat day in and day out throughout the year. The loin is the most expensive per pound part of the carcass. It's where all of the most expensive cuts come from. That's where the term eating high on the hog comes from, because it's from the top or the back of the animal where we get the most expensive cuts. There are lots of options when it comes to breaking down a pork loin and the retail cuts that come from the pork loin. The most traditional way to cut the pork loin is to just put it on a bandsaw and cut it from end to end into bone-in pork chops. I've cut one out of the center so that you can see that. So if I pull the single chop that we've cut out, that's how you get your traditional pork chop with a bone in. Conversely, if we decided to do a boneless fabrication on this pork loin, which is another option that you might have, there are a few different pieces that you would have. Back in the back part of the pork loin, the first thing that we would do is pull the boneless tenderloin out, and you might see those sold at retail intact just like that. Quite often they're marinated and sold as flavored pork tenderloins. And then if we turn it over just a little bit here, you can see that if we took the boneless portion off of the top of the loin, that's where you get your boneless pork chop. Okay. And if we move down to the belly, before we leave the loin here, I want to make the point that by taking the boneless top loin off and the tenderloin out, we would remove this portion of ribs from the pork loin, and that's where your baby back ribs would come from if you bought baby back ribs at the grocery store. So a portion of the ribs is left on the pork loin, and then a portion of the ribs is left in the belly when we break the loin from the belly. So the first thing that we do when we're fabricating the belly is to remove the spare ribs from the belly. Okay, so the spare ribs lift straight out of the belly, and that's where your spare ribs come from that you would barbecue. You'd buy them at the store and barbecue. If we remove the lower portion of the spare ribs, that's where your St. Louis style ribs come from, which are the same thing. They're just easier to slice and serve. The belly itself, right here, like I said, is where we get our bacon from. It again would be cured with salt, sugar, curing salt, whatever, maple flavor, smoked and then sliced thin into bacon. The shoulder, like we said earlier, is broken into two main portions. The upper portion is the Boston butt, which you can buy just like that at retail with the bone in it. The whole roast could be smoked or cooked in an oven and shredded for barbecue. It could also be sliced and sold as pork shoulder steaks or blade steaks. The picnic shoulder, much like the ham, could be cured with the skin on and the bone in and sold as a smoked picnic shoulder, or you could remove the skin and the bone and use the boneless picnic shoulder for making sausage or other lean products. Just another quick point here. I left these pieces down at the bottom of the table. These are what we refer to as pork trimmings, okay? And all they are, they're not junk, they're not trash. I didn't pick them up off of the floor. They're just what's left when we square these pieces up. So I remove the belly, I square it up so that it's nice and uniform and ready for bacon manufacture. Same thing with the Boston butt, same thing with the ham. So each one of these pieces just missed being a Boston butt or a pork loin or a ham by 1/2 centimeter or what have you. And like I said before to some of the other kids, I know several chefs in town that can make a pretty dandy product with just those pieces right there. But most commonly, those would go into our fresh or cooked sausages.